Welcome to the Pivot Clean Energy Podcast, How the World Cooks, the energy shift you need to know about. I'm your host, Alicia El-Mamouni. On this podcast, we are going to explore everything cooking and how it impacts the world, the stoves and fuel people use, access and availability to clean technologies, and more. Join us for personal conversations with individuals in the sector to learn about the dynamics that influence the way people cook around the globe. With over a third of the world's population still cooking with solid and polluting fuels like wood, charcoal, and kerosene, there are huge global impacts on health, climate, the environment, and gender and social considerations. But that's not the whole story. Come along with us to discover how the world cooks and why you should care. Hinata Energy Limited is a bioethanol clean cooking business entering the market in Nigeria, led by its CEO, Kamal-Deen Kassim. Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa, but 147 million people still rely on polluting fuels for cooking, with 70% using biomass and 12% using kerosene. Hinata saw a business opportunity paired with social responsibility when they were able to assume an abandoned cooking project that had previously attempted to start up in the country, and paired that with a recognized need for clean cooking solutions in the university system. Currently, students aren't able to utilize LPG or electric cookstoves in the tertiary institutions due to explosion or fire risk. So polluting fuels remain the only option for many students in these dormitories, which is also representative of the communities they live in. Kamal was able to align with partners in Nigeria and form an agreement with the National Board of Technical Education to start deploying 50,000 stoves over 6 geopolitical zones over the next several years. Hinata Energy is also building fuel kiosks at each location the stoves are marketed in to ensure access and affordability. As the tertiary institutions support these efforts, not only will students in the dorms have healthier air, but staff and families in the surrounding communities will also be in exposure and have the ability to purchase stoves and fuel. Listen in as we talk about Kamal's introduction to clean cooking, Hinata's start, their target market and strategy, why bioethanol is such an ideal option for this market, the importance of private sector investment in these businesses, and his advice to others who are looking to start up in the clean energy space. Kamal, welcome to the show. Now, when people think about how the world cooks, they are maybe thinking cuisine or variety of foods. We are going to talk about how the world cooks, but from the perspective of the technologies that they're using to cook their food. And you are providing a solution that transitions people from polluting fuels like wood and charcoal that create a number of other issues, including health impacts, environmental concerns, carbon emissions, etc. And so we are looking forward to hearing about how you are tackling that in Nigeria. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Miss Alicia. Thank you so much.
Now, we are going to talk about cooking, but first, I want our listeners to get to know you a little bit. So could you start off by telling us a little bit about your family and what it was like growing up in Nigeria?
Oh, okay. My name is Kamal. I'm the CEO of Hinata Energy. At Hinata Energy, we retail biofuel-powered cookstoves, targeting communities that rely on polluting fuels for cooking. While growing up, we were actually a small family, just myself, my elder brother, and my siblings, and of course, my parents. Around 2002, I lost my dad, and I was pretty raised by a single mother. But the interesting thing is, my mother believes so much in education, so we were able to move from poverty to being very comfortable. Like my elder brother is a lecturer in the US. Myself, I'm doing well, and thanks to my mom especially. Yeah.
That's amazing. It sounds like you have a very wise mother prioritizing education for you guys.
Yes.
What do you remember growing up about the cooking situation in your house? How did your mom or other members of the household typically cook?
Yes, during my younger days, my household and majority households in my community or even outside my community use kerosene and charcoal and firewood for cooking. liquefied petroleum gas, which is LPG, wasn't common, and that was because the Nigerian government just left the military era to democracy. So the economic situation of the country was really bad. So as of then, majority people use polluting fuels, just like kerosene, charcoal, and firewood. Yeah, I'm not sure when I was younger I ever seen, and when I mean younger, I mean 10 years, between 5 to 12 years. I wasn't sure I saw anyone using liquefied petroleum gas or other clean fuels for cooking. Yes.
So you would say for most Nigerians, the typical fuels would be wood, charcoal, which would be like cooking over a fire for both of those, and then kerosene, and
Yes.
maybe a few people would be using LPG. Is that correct? That's
Yes.
across the
Yes.
country.
Yes, I would say then probably the is 0.5 richest households in Nigeria. Yes, since we were not among that status, then maybe that's why I never saw anyone using clean fuels like electricity or liquefied petroleum gas. Yeah.
And have you seen that start to shift in Nigeria? Are people using LPG? And just for our listeners who might not be familiar with LPG, imagine what you would be using for like a small camp stove here in the US, or it would be comparable to butane here, using a little cook stove or the gas that you get in your home to fuel your stove. That would be a similar concept to LPG, which is used in much of the emerging markets around the world. So to jump back in, have you seen that shift to electricity, to LPG across Nigeria in the past 10 years?
Oh yes, my first experience with clean fuels was actually LPG. A neighbor of mine, the household, they bought one, and we were like, okay, what sort of technology is this? And we asked a lot of questions because I'm a very curious person. So I asked a lot of questions, but then it wasn't a big deal because it's just the only household in the whole community. So everyone was fine using polluting fuels. And don't forget, polluting fuels, they are very accessible and they are affordable. Yes, and when you come to a country like Nigeria, where more than half of the population lives in extreme poverty, it's normal for people to cook with polluting fuels. Over time, we have seen an increment in the usage of clean fuels in Nigeria, and that's because of modernization, urbanization, and of course the government being conscious about moving people out of energy poverty. But there are still barriers. There are still barriers. We still have like more than 100 million people in Nigeria who still rely on polluting fuels for cooking. Mind you, Nigeria is a population of more than 200 million people. So that means half of the population still rely on polluting fuels. And some of the barriers, I would say number one is the fact that the infrastructure, the clean fuel infrastructure in Nigeria is not as safer as in other developed world. You get it, because we've seen cases of fire hazards as a result of the usage of LPG, and some of it could be due to the bad maintenance culture of Nigerians, or because of the importation of substandard camp gas and the likes. So that's one of it. And And of course, because of that, if, for example, I have a neighbor or a family member that had, fire hazard or burns or as a result of LPG, I won't want to use it. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
there's that fear among Nigerians. The second would be the penetration itself. We find more people using clean fuels such as LPG and electricity, cook stove or electric cook stove in the urban cities. Yeah, why
Mm-hmm.
in the rural or peri-urban or low-income communities you see a lot of people using or relying on polluting fuels such as charcoal, kerosene for cooking. So I think basically those are some of the barriers.
So you mentioned that there is this shift in Nigeria toward cleaner fuels. People are looking at LPG, electricity. The government is setting that as more of a priority. But the reality is that wood, charcoal, kerosene are generally cheaper. They're more affordable and they're also more accessible. They're easy to find. You can go to any corner and buy your fuel for the day, or you can collect firewood from the ground. So those are some of the challenges in getting people to transition to a different type of fuel.
Yes.
And there are also other barriers. You talked about the safety and distribution channels and things like that. So we'll come back to those, but I want to first look at the clean cooking solution that you're providing because it's a little different than LPG or electricity. And so just give us a glimpse of the cooking solution that Hinata Energy is providing. Can you describe what the stoves and fuel look like that you're marketing?
Oh yes. So before I talk about what exactly we're doing, it's important to just give a background. So my first involvement in the clean cooking space was during my undergraduate, where a popular food vendor actually died as a result of fumes from polluting falls, and I
Mm-hmm.
was quite surprised because this is falls we've been used to in my households. So upon doing more research, I got to find out that uh, polluting fuels can actually lead to non-communicable diseases such as lung cancer and cardiovascular diseases or even other respiratory diseases. So I picked interest in it, and since then, I think that was like 10 years ago, and until not until between like my undergrad to date, I did my undergraduate thesis. I work in renewable energy companies that actually specialize in biorenewables, and as of 2-3 years ago, we started Inata Energy. So basically, what we do is we promote the use of biofuel powered cook stoves. So the biofuel is actually bioethanol. So we promote it and we target communities that still rely on polluting fuels such as kerosene, charcoal, or firewood. So basically, we are
Mm-hmm.
business to business or business to customers, which makes us to target uh, students in tertiary institutions, cook stove resellers, or even cooperative societies. And we've been
Mm-hmm.
doing well so far. We've been doing well. Yes.
That's great. I want to hear about that. A lot of our listeners probably don't know what the stove actually looks like, though. Can you just paint a picture for us of what the actual stove looks like that people are cooking on?
Oh yes. So the stove is a simple tool for cooking. So just picture your conventional stove in your kitchen, and but this time around it has a 4 canister, a container. So the good thing about the container is it's non-pressurized container. So unlike LPG cylinders that are pressured, and so you remove the container or the canister and you pour the biofuel. The biofuel is liquid and it is denatured. So you pour the biofuel inside the container and you slot it back into the stove shell, and that's it. You cook, yeah. And once you done cooking, the stove has a regulator that you can always open and close, and once you shut it down, it's off, and which is like really good because most polluting fuels don't have a regulator. That is the cook. So for example, picture the firewood. You have to actually use your mouth, or you pour water, and that water could like cause a lot of fumes to go all out. So it's actually pretty safe. So why do we promote ours? I think the first reason is the safety. Yes. So like I said before, one of the barriers to people using LPG, that is liquefied petroleum gas, is the safety aspect. So because our cook stove is non-pressurized and it is liquid meaning it is less volatile compared to LPG, people are very comfortable using it. So you can see a scenario where a mother or a father encourage the children who are like 10, 11 years old, go cook noodles, don't stress me. But they can't do that. They can't do that with with LPG. They will always want to supervise the usage. I think that's one. The second is, of course, accessibility. So in one of our business model focus so much on how we can make the biofuel to be accessible. So one of our logo or one of our slogan is one community at a time. So we target a community. We make sure that we do a lot of education, and we bring them on board to use our cook stove. Once we're done with that community, we move to another community, and we've been doing pretty well. Yes, regarding that.
That's great. So stove is safe enough for even children learning how to cook to use. So just to paint this very clear picture, make sure that I'm describing this right. If you have an LPG stove in your house, you're going to have a larger pressurized canister with a hose that goes to a cooktop, and then you would have 1 or 2 burners, and you would be able to cook using the fuel from that canister.
Yes.
And a bioethanol stove operates on a simple principle of a similar box with a burner on top, and then underneath that box there's a canister that slides out, and you fill the canister with fuel, put it back in, and then you can light it and regulate your flame from the outside.
Yes.
And so Hinata is providing this stove and this fuel. Tell us a little bit about how you started Hinata. What was the driver behind beginning this business? Because it didn't just happen overnight. So what were those initial processes to getting started?
After my undergrad, I gained an employment in a US-based company called Project Gaia. So Project Gaia does design and installation of biofuel plants. Basically, the plant that produces the biofuel for the cooking. So
like a
we did
micro-distillery.
a micro distillery, exactly. So we did couple of projects in Nigeria, and around 2016, Project Gaia, Shell is a multinational oil and gas, and 40 Oil, which is a local oil and gas company, now rebranded as Adova. They partnered together to actually do a clean cooking project in Lagos. So the target was to deploy at least 2,500 cook stoves in Lagos, and for some reasons the project wasn't successful. And during the project, my role was the lead field operations and engineering, but it wasn't successful. And I went for my master's after gaining a fully funded scholarship. Then, while returning, when I returned, I found out that they have only deployed like 500 units out of the 2,000, and the remaining of the cook stove were just stored in the warehouse. I felt kind of like, no, this product or this idea is actually a great one. Like, how can we revive it? So I
How can you
started
make it
having this.
work?
Yes, so I started working with or discussing with the the partners, Project Gaia, Adova, to see how we can be able to revive it. And they gave us a thumbs up, and we were able to purchase all the cook stoves, and and that was how Hinata Energy started. So before we actually started the business operation, the first thing we did was to do a feasibility study, because so we kept asking ourselves, why did previous projects failed? Yes, and how can we do better so that we don't do the same thing and end up failing. So during our feasibility studies, we realized that more than 80% of tertiary institutions in Nigeria banned the use of liquefied petroleum gas and electric cook stove. So students living in the hostels, they have no choice than to use polluting fuels such as kerosene and charcoal. And right now in Nigeria, kerosene is like very expensive. It's more than $1 per liter. It's very expensive. So this, of course, is a very good market niche for us to start. It's a market that need a solution. So we basically just go to one of the tertiary institutions, pitch the idea to them, and they allowed us in. And one of the reasons, reason it was very successful was the fact that the tertiary institution we went to, the head of that institution happens to be a professor in bio-renewable energy. So he understood what exactly we're trying to do, and he knows that the solution will be beneficiary to the students and also the staff, and even the community around the school. And that was how we started. Yes.
Wow. So you took this failed project, this pilot project that just wasn't quite successful. You invested in it, you turned it around, you did the legwork to make sure that you understood the market you wanted to go into, and you realized, hey, there is this gap in the university system. Now, when you say tertiary institution, you mean technical universities, the colleges
Yes,
in the university
yes,
system.
exactly. Yeah. So in Nigeria, there are three of them. So we have the universities, we have the polytechnics, and we have the College of Education. Yes.
Okay, so you saw this need and you approached the university system. You said, hey, we've got this great product that you could put into your dormitories, provide for students and staff as a clean option so that they don't have to rely on polluting fuels because they aren't allowed to use electricity or LPG in most cases.
Yes, yes,
And
and it's a 4 million in population. Yeah, so the
4 million
target, yeah,
population.
4 million of them. And the good thing about this niche is that it is like diverse. So in every state in Nigeria, there is actually a university, at least one university, one polytechnic, and one college of education. So with
Okay.
this approach, we can become national. Yes,
So you can
we
cover the
can easily,
entire
yeah,
country.
we
That's wonderful. So you also have formed an agreement, if I understand correctly, with the Technical Board of Education that helps run these universities. Can you explain a little bit about that partnership?
Oh, yes. So when we started with the first tertiary institution named Kaduna Polytechnic, so is one of the biggest polytechnics in northern Nigeria, and within few months, it was obvious the business is progressing. A lot of people are keen into our staff students are keen to his staff, and even those around the institution. So the head of the institution was promoted by then the president of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, to head all the polytechnics in Nigeria. So when he resumed, I happened to be one of the people he called, and he reached out to me, and he was like, Kamal, how can we scale this to other polytechnics in Nigeria? And I love that. Of course. So we signed an MOU. Yeah, so the MOU allows us to go to any polytechnic in Nigeria and set up our business without any bureaucracy or without any barrier. Yes, so and it has been going, so it's been going well so far. Yes.
So that was a really fortuitous meeting that you started pitching your stoves and fuel in Kaduna, and the head of that institution actually was promoted and opened up all of the technical institutions in Nigeria for you. So now you just need additional investment and you can begin to expand your operations.
Yes.
So in addition, you've had some other partners come on board. And Pivot is one of those. We've been happy to watch you grow.
Of course.
And last year, we were able to help support the building of a fuel kiosk with a commitment from Renewable Fuels Nebraska. Can you describe a little bit about how you're positioning stoves and fuel accessibility at each of these institutions so that people have access?
Yes. So when we start growing in Kaduna, potential customers started reaching out from the neighborhood city, and one of those cities is Zaria. So they started reaching out, they started buying, and this was a signal for us to expand beyond Kaduna city. So we saw two institutions as the best place to start, which is Ahmadu Bello University. Ahmadu Bello University is the largest university in terms of population in Nigeria, more than 50,000 active students, and Federal College of Education, Zaria, which is also a pretty big college of education. So we met with them, and we started discussing with them how we can be able to come on board, and they really like the idea. One thing in Nigeria is all these institutions, they have alignments, they have linkages, so they were able to reach out to the polytechnic about us, and the polytechnic gave a good go ahead that yes, Hinata Energy is doing great, and they were able to bring us in. And the next thing was now the funding, and that was how we reached out to Pivot, and we were so happy Pivot supported installation of a fuel station in Federal College of Education, Zaria. So we now have an outlet in Zaria, currently serving at least 300 households. Yes. And very soon, we also got the approval in Ahmadu Bello University, and we further got another grant from Pivot. And before the end of the year, we're going to be installing another four kiosks in Ahmadu Bello University. Yes.
Yeah, we can't wait to see the progress on that. And so that is one of your key strategies, is to put a fuel kiosk that would dispense fuel on a daily basis to anybody who has a stove. And that fuel kiosk is built in close proximity to where the stoves are being used within the community, within the technical university, so that there's never an issue with how to get fuel. How do I light my stove tonight? And give us an example of, just to put this in perspective for listeners, how much does it cost for you to build a fuel kiosk, and what are the components of that? Does it have a tank? Is it a little store? What does that look like?
Yes, so an average filling station is between $8,000 to $10,000, and that depend on the storage capacity of the filling station. And in any filling station, there is the storage tank itself, the pipes, the dispenser, and a kiosk where we store some of the stoves, and where the fuel attendants stays. So and of course we do create a barrier, so that people know that this is actually a fuel station. And
Mm-hmm.
we also invested in safety, because it's fuel, it's inflammable, so safety is also very important. So basically that's how those are the components in our typical fuel stations. Yes.
So it's a small building with a fuel tank. You have an
Yes.
employee that's on site that can dispense fuel for customers. They can provide stoves. They can answer questions.
Yes.
And you have told me previously you have the go ahead for 15 additional locations. And so if I'm doing my math right, at about $10,000 per kiosk, if you had a $150,000 investment, then you could quickly roll out 15 filling stations at different locations to provide greater accessibility.
Yes, yes, we can be able to do that. And as a business, our focus right now is to cover the core nuts. Yes, and the reason is because there is less penetration of you know uh liquefied petroleum gas and even electricity. Yeah, in the
Hmm.
core nuts. So most of the big cities, they are down the country, that is the southern part of the country. So
Hmm.
so basically that's what we're doing to increase penetration of our business, the biofuel cook stove in the core northern states in Nigeria. And like I said to you before, we now have 15 approvals. So, and this 15 approval is in six states in Nigeria. Yes.
Wow. So you're focusing on the northern part, you're focusing on some smaller communities, but that still have large potential because of these technical institutions.
Yes.
You've done a lot of groundwork, making these agreements and connecting with people, showing them the technology. Where do you see Hinata in 5 years?
Yes. In 5 years, I would say Inata should be nationally spread. Yes, in 5 years, and we will have deployed at least 1 million cookstoves. And this is very possible. We've seen a different company in another country does that within 3 years, like
Hmm.
half, more than half of it. So it's very possible with funding and with strong partners. It's very possible. The second is us being able to build on the fuel infrastructure, and not just the fuel infrastructure, us being able to do some backward integration, so that we can be able to produce the fuel standards without relying on edible bioethanol. Yes, because they
Hmm.
are edible bioethanol and they are like the fuel bioethanol. So in
Hmm.
Nigeria right now, we don't have any fuel bioethanol refinery. So
Okay.
Inata Energy could, be one of the pioneers of setting up a bioethanol refinery specifically for cooking and for other things like transportation and other things the biofuel could be used for.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yes.
so right now Nigeria has beverage grade alcohol, so that's going into the beverage market, but they really don't have anything for fuel ethanol. So Kenyatta could really spearhead those efforts and ensure that you have a source of fuel for your cook stoves in the country.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That would be a great space for you guys to fill.
Yes.
So you mentioned, 1 million stoves over the next 5 years. You want to be spread nationally across Nigeria. Those are huge goals. You're right. I think they are attainable with the right investment. And so what does that look like to achieve those goals? What do you need in terms of investment? What do you need in terms of government support? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, in terms of investment, it will definitely millions of dollars, like up to $10 million. Yeah, if we
Mm-hmm.
bought, of course, we don't need to just there's no way we can just deploy 1 million stoves in 1 year. So those
Right.
investments can actually come in batches, so that we can actually track progress. Also, we need government support, and I'm really glad that the current government is very much interested in low carbon projects. With the government support, we can be able to get incentives like tax
Mm-hmm.
incentives. We can be able to get or establish our carbon finance program, which of course we've seen companies in our space leveraging on it. So Hinata Energy can also
Mm-hmm.
leverage on that. So, and the government can also give some sort of some grants and even loans, because since we are into renewable energy space, which is dependent on agriculture. There
Mm-hmm.
is Bank of Agriculture in Nigeria. There is Bank of Industry. So the government can actually grant us a low interest loan through these institutions as a way to
Mm-hmm.
support the industry. Yes, or our company.
Absolutely. And that's one of the great things about biofuels is it does impact agriculture and industry, creating clean jobs and cleaning up the environment and climate, providing health benefits. There are just so many other sectors tied to it that can benefit. And so that's really exciting. Um, so you basically mentioned that in order for you guys to really expand effectively, you need some investment. You need to look into maybe the carbon markets for some additional support, and then also government support through tax subsidies or reducing import export duties.
Yes,
Looking at how to reduce those value added taxes on certain products, and that would go a long way to help out startup businesses in the clean energy space as well.
yes, yes.
So, one final thing, what piece of advice would you give to a company that is starting up in the clean cooking space today? Put you on the
Yes.
spot.
So the first, I would say, the founders or the team, they need to be realistic as possible.
Hmm.
So when starting a business like ours, it's involve a lot of capital. It involves quite uh, lot of patience to be
Hmm.
able to grow. So they need to be as realistic as possible. They need to figure out what they can be able to control and how they can lessen the impact of things they can be able to control. The
Hmm.
second one is, I would say, they need to focus on a lot of collaboration, our both local and international collaboration. So they need
Hmm.
to reach out as many as possible. It can never be enough. If so many say no, I'm very sure one or two will say yes, and those one or two could be really impactful, like Pivot, for example. Pivot has been really impactful to us. The
Hmm.
third one, I would say, at the beginning, it's okay not to depend on the government. Just achieve some level of traction. Yes, so that when you meeting, the government, or when you meeting other bigger players, you can be able
Hmm.
to show them the traction. For example, in our own case, before we met Pivot, we've deployed at least 100 cookstove, and now we are over or close to 1,500 cookstove. And the reason why this is still like small, it's because as a startup company with limited resources, we did not invest so much in marketing. So
Hmm.
most of our sales has been word of mouth. But recently we've been getting like grants that could actually make us to do proper marketing. So we hope this year, before the end of the year or next year, we're going to grow bigger. Yes. So once we have those traction, then it's become natural for the local government or the state government or even the federal government to reach out that, okay, we know you're doing this. How can we support? Yes. How
Sure.
can we support? Yes.
Okay, so that was three things. One, you want to be realistic. Make sure that your goals have big goals, but make sure they're realistic goals and have a big vision with that, which I think you've done well. Two, you want to be able to network, reach out to people that can help provide resources and technical assistance. And then three, scale gradually, know your capacity, and then the government will come on board as they start to notice that you're gaining space.
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, I lied. I have one more fun question for you since we're talking about cooking. I want to know what your favorite Nigerian food is. So, if somebody comes to Nigeria, what is the one thing that they have to try?
I would say Nigerian jollof rice
Okay.
with plantain
Okay.
and chicken. Yeah, Nigerian jollof rice, not Ghanaian jollof rice, not Senegalese jollof rice.
Uh-oh.
Nigerian jollof rice. Yes.
We're gonna start a food war here over jollof rice.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to Nigeria, jollof rice with plantain and chicken, that's the food to get.
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today, Kamal. We are really excited about Hinata's start and all the progress that we've seen you make. You have a huge vision, but the past 2 years, it's been really fun to get to know you and to watch Hinata expand. And we can't wait to see what the future holds for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Miss Alicia. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening. We are passionate about opening access to household energy around the world that also lead to reduced emissions, improved health outcomes, environmental protection, greater purchasing power, gender equity, and so much more. We would be grateful if you found this information valuable and pass it along to friends, family, colleagues, your mailman, your grocer, anyone you know, and find some way to get involved. Don't forget to follow us on our social accounts on LinkedIn and Twitter. Check out our website at pivotcleanenergy.org. And of course, follow us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts so you can catch us when the next episode drops.